It does. I mean, a lot of atheists simply think that a belief is something that you accept without evidence, and therefore all beliefs are irrational. And they have a very narrow field of what evidence is. A lot of things I'll go, that's not evidence, when they are. Rationality isn't whether you hold a belief or not, it's why you hold your belief, or why you don't hold a belief, why you suspend judgment, why you think the proposition is meaningless. You know, I think that it's quite easy to be a rational agnostic or a rational atheist, for example. Both of those positions can be rationalized. I think even theists can be as rational as they can be. I think in general, most theists are quite rational. I think some of them have very bad arguments for their God, though. The reason they believe in God is some of them, obviously not all, because some of them have got very well thought out positions, but some of them believe in God simply because, well, it's how I was brought up. My dad believes, so I do. And that isn't very rational thinking. And you could say the same for an atheist. Well, we've never believed in God, so I don't. I've never really thought about it. That's technically an irrational reason to actually not believe. You know, especially if you go so far as to believe gods don't exist. Well, I believe gods don't exist. Why? Well, because I've just never believed.
Because my parents did.
Yeah, and I've said before, I think, for example, a YEC, even though their position is an irrational one, can be rational in their YEC belief if they are in, say, sort of a commune where that's all the knowledge they've ever been given about a young earth and their biblical teachings. You know, the second they go out into the world and they learn a bit of science and a dose of reality and they reject it, okay, they're suddenly now in an irrational position because they've got more information available to them. But if the only information they have is from this small commune and about the world, then of course it's as rational as they can be. Here's all the information you're allowed. Okay, well, I formed my beliefs on this because of this. And yes, it does get circular, but it doesn't mean it's irrational. It means it's as rational as it can be. And that's one of the hardest things with rationality, because not only do we have what is and isn't rational, we also have how rational a particular person can be at a particular time in their life and the particular surroundings and everything like that. So rationality is bloody confusing. It's one of the shows that I think I'd like to cover off again. We did a podcast, I think it was in our first season of Fresh Air, and I'd like to get deeper into the rationality debate at some point. We've been breaking out into different topics recently. Yeah, I reckon it will. I think I have a little bit of a better understanding than I did when we first discussed rationality, and we can talk at the next level, and you can blow me away, Dave, and I'll go, oh, fuck, I really don't understand as much as I thought again.
Yeah, you understand the basics. That's good enough.
The crazy thing is, I don't think most people even do understand the basics of rationality.
I don't think a lot of people, I think the same. I don't think a lot of people who use terms like I'm rational actually know what they're saying when they say I'm rational.
Yeah.
Like, what was his name? Chris Mann, when I said define rationality. And he went, well, it's being rational. Okay, but to be rational, well, I'm using the term to mean the same thing that everybody else means when they say rational. Okay, but what does that mean? Well, it's colloquial. He could never actually tell me what being rational was.
Yeah, he used the same thing when he was talking about logical as well. I remember him talking about something logical. Well, what's logical? Well, I'm using logical debate. But what is logical debate? Well, it's debating logically. Okay, but what is logic? Well, it's a thing I'm using. Okay, yeah. But what is that?
I mean the same thing that everybody else means when they say being logical. What does that mean?
And that's why Dave came up with the "oh man" fallacy.
Yeah, he's also one of the reasons why I stopped actually having discussions with most people, because it gets so circular and painful.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's like, okay,
it's frustrating, that one, isn't it? I mean, that is the Dunning-Kruger in full effect. People who don't know much about a topic but assume that they do, assuming you don't know what you're talking about. And the problem is, I mean, especially someone like Dave, who's got a lot of knowledge and experience with these particular topics, because he knows how much he might not know, will be less confident than someone who is going on about, yeah, well, I know everything. And okay, with someone like Chris Mann, it was completely obvious how clueless he was. But other people who might have a little bit more knowledge than him, but still not be over that edge of the Dunning Kruger and going, oh fuck, there's so much more I don't know. It can make you doubt yourself. You end up in that whole imposter syndrome category where you're like, maybe I need to go and research this again. Maybe I've misquoted someone. Maybe what I learned last year was absolutely wrong and I've completely misinterpreted it. And it doesn't matter that Dave sat there with a distinction on his master's degree and most of his coursework, 80-90% and stuff like that. That doesn't actually matter at that point in time because you're suddenly like, shit, maybe I did miss it wrong. So I understand, like, conversations with folks like him, they dissuade you from having those conversations.